was publicly attacked and called names by my own family because we wouldn't write $250,000. Everything started with a desperate plea for help regarding their sick kid, and our initial no completely blew up the already fragile dynamics of our whole extended family. You think this is just about money, but there was so much more rotten truth bubbling underneath that nobody seemed to notice until it finally exploded in the group chat. We didn't just say no because of the price tag. We said no because of everything that has been wrong with them for years. So if I tell you why we walked away from this massive financial drain, will you realize who actually needed us more? It started over a phone call that felt less like a request and more like an accusation. They needed $250,000 for the money we simply couldn't provide. The sheer weight of their expectation, knowing our financial stability, was suffocating. We told them no, gently but firmly. What followed wasn't just drama. It was a public dismantling of us, tearing apart years of quiet peace. I saw the way they looked at my husband when we refused, a flash of pure resentment mixed with something cold and calculated. I remember looking at his cousin, who had always seemed so fragile, and noticing how much he avoided looking at our savings statements taped in the kitchen. It was unsettling, like knowing something was wrong even if you couldn't point to it. My husband has always told me that family is everything, that you just show up when someone needs you. We kept our own life quiet. We didn't need the applause or the performative kindness of others. We were fine on our own terms, enjoying a good, steady routine. Everyone assumed, it seemed, that since we were successful and lived quietly, we would naturally be supportive. They genuinely believed that the bond transcended bank accounts. It was just an assumption, but I accepted it, trusting that those who claimed to care meant it. The little thing was how easily they could talk about their debts, the sheer amount of money in play, and then suddenly switch gears and assume our vast resources were simply available for a major, unexpected expense. That's when the polite facade started to crack. I keep telling myself I acted rationally, but the weight of all those accusations flooding my inbox makes me question every single decision. They used the sick kid as leverage, demanding we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a chance at life, despite knowing exactly how much money they were already in debt. We simply said no. Suddenly, we are the villains, dragged through family group chats and social media posts. It is so baffling to me why they chose to attack us when we merely stood by our financial boundaries. If you were in my position, facing that kind of public cruelty, what would your gut instinct have been? Honestly, I wish we had checked their actual finances more thoroughly before making such a monumental decision. The barrage of texts and calls didn't stop after the initial blast. It was constant, demands disguised as concerned queries, thinly veiled insults wrapped in concern for the child. My sister-in-law actually tried to set up a meeting with us, insisting we needed to talk about options. The entire interaction felt choreographed. Everyone watched us like we were faulty appliances that needed fixing. I kept deleting my own messages before sending them, just to reread them and realize they sounded worse than the silence. It was exhausting. We finally managed to cool down, letting the days pass with nothing but awkward quiet. Everything seemed to settle into a predictable pattern of pitying whispers, but that was not the worst part. The next day, I found an email addressed to both our names, an invoice for something we absolutely did not order. It wasn't a negotiation. It was an expectation. They came to us, kneeling metaphorically, asking for $250,000. We told them we needed time, and ultimately we said no. It was brutal. The names they started throwing around, the accusations. It felt like being cornered in our own home. But what did we do? Did we crumble? No. They had spent their lives building a persona of struggle, yet every single item they bought screamed excess. Their debts were vast, sure, but so was their need for us to validate their life. We weren't built to be charity. The way they spun the narrative, the sick kid, the desperate plea, it almost worked. Almost. You have to ask yourself who truly benefits from this constant performance of hardship. Maybe we should be looking at whose accounts are suddenly being raided, because that was never about their child at all. They put us on blast everywhere. Of course, the public shaming in the group chat was relentless. I knew we couldn't let it stand like that. We had to defend our position. This wasn't just about the money, though it was about boundaries, about realizing they viewed us as some kind of endless resource. They expected $250,000 simply because we were family, as if blood meant unlimited finances. I reread the comments, looking for a loophole, anything that would ease the pressure. And then I saw it, tucked between the demands for donations and the pointed questions about our investments. It was a blurry picture of their old car keys lying on a mahogany table with something else next to them, a key fob, but not for any vehicle I recognized at all. It went from a phone call to an absolute siege. They dumped us in that family group chat, and then on Facebook, like we were some kind of moral failure. People started calling me out, asking where our loyalty lay, implying we didn't care about their kid or the blood connection. It was brutal. I tried to stand my ground, reminding everyone that if they couldn't afford it themselves, we wouldn't shoulder the weight. The pressure mounted from every angle, from aunts and cousins who suddenly had concern, to neighbors who were just curious enough to judge. It made me realize how many people only cared about us when we were convenient. Honestly, I looked at all those messages all that performance of grief, and wondered what was truly happening under the surface. Who do you think actually cares? Because in the end, everyone seemed to side with them. We didn't want to be responsible for their medical bills. We didn't want that burden or the endless parade of desperate pleas. But they acted like we were somehow obligated, treating our savings account like a communal emergency fund. Watching them post it all in the family group chat, airing us out like some kind of charity case. It was sickening. I thought about how much money we actually had, how little we even needed to live comfortably. They didn't see us as people. They saw us as a jackpot waiting to be opened. They truly believed our success meant we were morally obligated to bail them out every time their finances faltered. And then the messages started coming, piling up, demanding that we somehow fix their life. Whatever scraps of money we felt like tossing our way. I just stared at the screen, and the words caught in my throat. I couldn't breathe. It was never just about the money, though $250,000 is a mountain of debt. It was the endless cycle of their need, the assumption that our quiet life meant we were always available to bail them out. I felt this sick knot in my stomach, the fear that saying no would ruin us forever. But after all the gaslighting and the blatant disregard for our privacy, I couldn't. When we finally told them the truth, the sheer wave of fury was suffocating. They didn't just call names. They attacked everything we were. We sat in the wreckage of it all, watching the family chat explode with accusations. But I had to say something. If they couldn't afford it themselves, then we couldn't be the safety net. I typed out those words into the thread, knowing that comment would set off a firestorm, and watched their panicked response hit the screen. It was a total barrage. Texts, calls, messages flooding in from everyone, all demanding an explanation, judging us. The silence wasn't comfortable. It was filled with accusations and thinly veiled pity. They started rewriting what happened, taking my words out of context, turning our refusal into some kind of moral failure. It felt like a coordinated attack, designed to make us feel guilty for having boundaries. Every single post, every reply, just dug deeper into this narrative that we are cold, calculating strangers. Honestly, I'm exhausted by the performance. I just keep thinking about it. When does financial obligation stop being a choice and start becoming a moral requirement? Look, I know what you're thinking right now. You think we are heartless, that we don't care about family drama or sick kids, and maybe, in a purely emotional sense, we feel that sting of guilt too. But this wasn't about money. It was about principles. It was about setting a boundary, so clear, so absolute, that they finally understood the reality of who we are and what we have built. We will never sacrifice our peace for the sake of obligation or performative charity. Some people mistake love for unlimited access to your savings account. I challenge you to tell me otherwise. Now, hear me out. Did we do the right thing? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to follow for more conversations like this.